Well, the numbers are not sexy, but the Philadelphia Eagles were able to defeat the Dallas Cowboys tonight 24-20 because of the elite play of their quarterback, Jalen Hurts. The Locked On Eagles postgame show, the first one of 2025, coming your way.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome into the post-game show, everybody. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. 24-20, another classic, toxic, stressful Philadelphia Eagles Week 1 win. Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni in that Eagles era. They are now 5-0 to start off the season since 2021, and it feels like this game was a microcosm of all those games. It wasn't easy. It came down to the final drive, but the Eagles were able to be clutch, show their champions, show their battle-tested, overcome a lot of adversity, and get a W. Again, 24-20, the final score. The numbers are not sexy for the Eagles offense. They certainly were not great for the Eagles defense, which allowed 7 straight possessions to begin the game with scoring from the Dallas Cowboys, whether they were the first 2 touchdowns of the game or field goals as well. The defense was taking on some water on that boat because Jalen Carter, before the game even starts, spits on Dak Prescott. By the way, Dak spit first, though. We found that out in the second half, so I'm less mad at Jalen. But then we had a lightning delay as well. Ben Van Sumeren tore, I think his ACL, was carted off the field the first play of the game. Just a toxic up-and-down roller coaster of a matchup. But in all that chaos that was this win, there was the cool, calm demeanor of the franchise quarterback, Jalen Hurts, that said, I've got this. This game was a perfect representation of what makes Jalen Hurts elite. Is he elite in the same way as Patrick Mahomes? Actually, kind of. Maybe Mahomes is the wrong example. Is he the same kind of elite player that Josh Allen is, or Lamar Jackson, or Joe Burrow? Is he the same style of player as a Matt Stafford, or a Jaden Daniels, or some of these other elite quarterbacks in football? No. But just because you're a different kind of player doesn't mean you're elite. Jalen Hurts, or doesn't mean you're not elite. Jalen Hurts is elite in a different way. And today showed his elite traits. His mobility and his clutch gene, his ability to never get rattled, no matter the situation, is what makes him a great, now Super Bowl champion quarterback. I mean, for this team, again, to lose their most impactful player on defense before there is one snap, Jalen Carter tossed from this football game before they even played. For that to happen, the Dallas Cowboys march right down the field, score a touchdown. You might have lost one of your starting offensive players for the season, although it's a fullback. Like, that's a crazy thing to happen on the first kickoff of the 2025 season. And then Jalen Hurts marches right down the field and scores a rushing touchdown. And then the next drive, the Dallas Cowboys score again. What does Jalen Hurts do? No problem. You want me to get into a shootout with Dak Prescott if that's what it's going to take to win this football game? I've got this. And not only did he score 2 rushing touchdowns and was elevating this football team. Everybody says Jalen Hurts can't elevate this team, elevate this offense. He elevated the offense, he carried the defense, and he did it without the passing game really having success. And I don't think that was his fault. Like, yeah, you look at the numbers today, and it wasn't sexy from a statistical standpoint. 19 of 23, 152 passing yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 62 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. But I don't think the numbers not being up there were because of Jalen Hurts. I think A.J. Brown only got 1 target, and it was in the fourth quarter, had a reception on the final drive. Was he injured? It felt like Kevin Patullo was calling a very conservative play-calling game because DeVonta Smith really wasn't involved either. They had that 1 vertical shot to Jahan Dotson, which was caught for over 50 yards. So I don't really think it was on Jalen Hurts. I thought he looked dialed in from the start, was making all the right decisions, was accurate, started the game, I think 7 of 7, 8 of 8, had those 2 rushing touchdowns, and nobody was open. Like, when you look at those plays that he extended, yeah, the protection was great, but he couldn't find anybody, and Jalen had to improv. He had to make plays outside of structure with his legs. On those 2 rushing touchdowns, on that 1 scoring drive, he had 5 scramble runs for 43. Those 2 drives. 5 scramble carries in those first 2 scoring drives for 43 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, which was tied for a career high. So not only was this not by design, It was not by choice, really. Like, Jalen had to do this. He doesn't always like to run at that kind of volume, especially early on in the season, early on in games, but he had to do that. And that's why it bothers me so much when people cherry pick Jalen Hurts' passing stats to say that he's not an elite football player, to compare it with some of these other guys like a Dak Prescott, who had a great performance today, that has these gaudy passing numbers. That doesn't tell the whole story of Jalen Hurts. It doesn't show you why he's a special football player. It's why, some of my non-Eagles fans' friends will roll their eyes at when Eagles fans use total yardage to justify Jalen Hurts in a debate against another star quarterback. But production is production. Jalen Hurts carrying you is carrying you, whether it's through running the football or through the air. Nobody knocks Josh Allen for it when he's clutch as a running quarterback, or Lamar Jackson, or when Russell Wilson was in his prime, or Cam Newton was in his prime. Today was, again, the perfect representation of why, despite the numbers not always looking the best, Jalen Hurts is an elite football player. Again, he had to overcome the defense just allowing points all game for 7 straight possessions to begin this football game, losing the most impactful player on defense. Then clearly you were rusty and you had to wait till 11:30 p.m. to continue play because of a lightning delay. And Jalen was able to not only, again, score those first 2 touchdowns and stay on par with Dak Prescott, but then he put the game on ice. That's a big third down in that final drive where if he doesn't pick up that first down, even if you hit the field goal there, Dak Prescott has a little over a minute left to potentially go down the field and score the game-tying touchdown. And considering how inconsistent, and that's putting it lightly, the secondary was today, Hurts' ability to call an empty set play and pick up that first down where it's him versus a linebacker one-on-one, and he put that linebacker on absolute skates, faked him outside, cut inside upfield, the linebacker slipped and fell, Jalen picks up the first down, protects himself, which he did a great job of doing today, and then slid. Again, I know the numbers aren't beautiful for the quarterback today. 19 of 23, 152 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. But Jalen showed, because of his calmness, his clear veteran ability to win in close games against division rivals, in the playoffs, against great teams, great players, great quarterbacks, to be able to do that and to elevate as a elite mobile quarterback, that's what makes him special. And for me, this game was all about Jalen Hurts. It was really all about the 2 faces of the franchise. It was him and Saquon Barkley. Saquon had a great game as well. I know the numbers for him don't look great either. 18 carries for 60 rushing yards, only averaged 3.3 yards per carry. Down the stretch, they could not put the game on ice. Landon Dickerson was really banged up, had to come out of this game eventually because of that back injury. Brett Toth was in at left guard. The Dallas Cowboys defensive line, I'll give them props. They got some pushback, especially after that delay, that weather delay. They adjusted really well. Eberflus adjusted really well. But I thought Saquon looked great in that first half, had that rushing touchdown to take the lead. The Eagles never looked back from there. And through the air, 4 catches for 24 yards doesn't seem like anything, but that one-handed catch to pick up the first down in the fourth quarter where they're killing clock, that was really important as well. I thought this game was all about what the Eagles do best, what Jalen Hurts does best, what the offense does best, running the football. Now, do they have their work cut out for them in the passing game? Absolutely. A.J. Brown cannot touch the football only once. And it to be on the final drive, that can't happen for multiple reasons. And we'll talk about that next week on the show. I don't want this guy demanding a trade, but also he's too good of a football player. He's too impactful to your offense, too important to your offense to not even try to force feed him the ball a little bit more. The fact that they didn't even have any quick passes dialed up for A.J. Brown today was not good enough. You have to do that. You have to get DeVonta Smith involved more than what he had. I mean, DeVonta only had 3 catches for 16 yards. A.J. Brown had just the 1 catch for 8 yards. 2 of the best receivers in the world should not be in a football game for 4 quarters and only have 4 catches for 24 yards total. That's not good enough. I thought Kevin Patullo was a little bit too conservative in this football game, especially in the second half. Felt like they were just trying to kill clock instead of go for the dagger, if you will, and win by 2 possessions. But overall, a win is a win. Week 1 is always wonky. When you consider the obstacles they had to overcome today, the lightning delay, Jalen Carter getting kicked out, an early injury, Dak Prescott having a really good performance, Dallas kind of elevating their play considering the circumstances, I'll take the win. especially considering you got the Chiefs coming up next in Arrowhead. You got the Rams. September is a really tough month for the Eagles, so I don't always want to say a win is a win, but for today, a win is a win, and I'm really encouraged because the win was about your quarterback, and that makes you feel good 100% of the time. 24-20 was the final score. The Philadelphia Eagles start 1-0 on the 2025 season, but I do have a lot of concerns for Vic Fangio's defense. We'll get into that coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. All right, guys, let's talk to you about our first sponsor of the day, which is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is one of the best daily fantasy apps. It's the best out there, where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks lately, and it's such a fun way to stay locked in for the season. It's quick, easy, and honestly my favorite way to play and follow along with football. I love checking projections, whether it's, a guy like Josh Allen the Sunday night against Baltimore throwing for more or less than 270 passing yards, or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. Normally it's more. I tend to go with the over. This week they have max discounts as well, which include Lamar Jackson over a half a passing yard, Travis Kelce over half a receiving yard, and Patrick Mahomes over half a passing yard as well. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use our code LOCKEDONNFL. You're going to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you first put in $5 of lineup play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Guys, today's show is also sponsored by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. Mazda offers more than safety. It's won more 2025 IIHS Top Safety Pick awards than anybody else. As an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same, from metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. 24-20, the Philadelphia Eagles win a stressful first game over the Dallas Cowboys, but 1-0 is 1-0. It looks a lot better than 0-2. Going into Arrowhead, to have to win against a Chiefs team that wants revenge to avoid 0-2, staring 0-2 down in a barrel like that would not have been great. Not that I don't think the Eagles will win that football game next week, but this was a game you had to have, and they had to overcome a lot. I do want to get into the Jalen Carter situation. At first, I was irate. I mean, look, Jalen Carter is a villain, right? He's, to put it lightly, he's kind of a scumbag. I mean, he's a crazy person, and that's part of what makes him a great football player. It allowed him to drop in the NFL draft for the Eagles to get a generational talent like Carter. So we know that, these kind of things can happen at times with Carter, but for him to spit on the quarterback before the game even starts, to not understand that could get you ejected, especially it's the quarterback, that made me furious. Especially this year, again, I know Jalen's going to have those times. He's kind of like the Hulk, where you got to rein him in. You want to use his powers if you're the Avengers, but there's times he could turn on you and he could hurt you. And I think that could be Jalen Carter. He can be a little bit undisciplined and a little nuts in the head. That's Jalen. It's part of what makes him great, but it can hurt you at times. It's a gift and a curse. I thought he took it too far today, though, and he's got to know better. Now he's in year 3. Now he's the face of the defense. There isn't a Fletcher Cox to help you anymore. There isn't a Milton Williams anymore. Yes, that defensive line was really good tonight. I was actually really impressed with how the role players up front stepped up without Carter, but so much of what that defense does revolves around the attention that Jalen Carter gets. It opens up so much for pass rushers on the defensive line. It makes things so much easier for the back end, linebackers, corners, safeties, and coverage against the run. You cannot spit on, and look, I know, I'm not as mad at Jalen now that I know Dak Prescott spit first. I mean, Dak Prescott, what a POS, if you ask me. I mean, just ridiculous. That made me so angry to see that he was the first one to do it. But if you're Jalen Carter, you can't retaliate. You know the quarterback who didn't spit directly on you, that got away with it, you know they're going to get that kind of call if the ref sees it. And to do it right in front of a referee, look, you got to be more disciplined than that. Like, this is year 3. You're a veteran. You're a leader now of this defense. You're the face of the defense, and they needed you. I mean, Javonte Williams had a pretty solid first half. Dallas's run offense is going to be one of the worst in football this year, in my opinion. And both rushing touchdowns they scored in the red zone, where they normally stink, they're not a good red zone offense or red zone defense, it was right up the gut where Jalen Carter could have been. So, like, Jalen, you cannot do that the rest of the year. Nick Sirianni has to have a talk with him. I know now, like, I'm a little less mad that it was provoked. Like, if that would have came out of nowhere, I was fuming. For the first, 3 or 4 drives of that game, I couldn't get over it. But now that I know that Prescott spit first, I'm a little less mad. It's the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. It's part of what makes Carter great. But you can't retaliate. You have to have more control than that. Because if the Eagles lost this football game, a huge reason they would have lost is because Jalen Carter was not on the football field. So that was brutal. And the exact reasons that Dallas was in this game and it wasn't the blowout I thought it could have been it was because of the exact things we thought would be the only things that keep Dallas in this football game. It was being undisciplined and shooting yourself in the foot, like Jalen Carter when he spit on Dak Prescott and got ejected. It was penalties. I mean, although the refs, I think, were a little too pro-Dallas tonight, the offensive line of the Cowboys got away with some egregious holding calls, especially on Nolan Smith, who had a really good first game. At the same time, you were pretty undisciplined. Like, you got a couple unsportsmanlikes. You got a couple deep pass interference calls. You got a roughing the passer from Nolan. Nolan had a couple penalties in this football game. It was shooting yourself in the foot. And the other thing we were concerned about was if Dallas was going to stay in this game, it was by Dak Prescott and the receivers torching Adoree Jackson. And man, was I right? Do I feel vindicated? I don't feel great about it, but I feel vindicated because Adoree Jackson was horrible from start to finish in this football game. He should not be starting next week against Kansas City. I said it for months. He is not good enough to be a starter on a defense that's supposed to be competing for a Super Bowl. That's supposed to be the number 1 ranked unit in the NFL. He is not a good enough player for 17 to 20 games. He's just not good enough anymore. I didn't think he was good in the preseason. Didn't sound like he was really all that great in practice either at training camp. It felt like he won by default because Vic Fangio did not trust Keely Ringo or Jacorian Bennett yet. But those guys at least have some strengths that I know they're going to give up plays, but they have some strengths at least that Adoree Jackson does not. Like, he couldn't run with CeeDee Lamb today. He couldn't run with George Pickens. I mean, that huge run from Miles Sanders, Adoree Jackson's on his back. I mean, it was an embarrassing watch to see him try to get involved in that play. And the amount of depth he was playing with, to seeing him try to stick with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, just absolutely brutal. I thought he was the worst player on the field today, and it was infuriating to watch the Eagles just not make adjustments. This reminds me a lot of last year when, before Cooper DeJean took over in the slot, those first 4 weeks, Avonte Maddox was in the slot, and he clearly just was the weak link of the defense, and everybody was picking on him, especially in that Tampa Bay game. That felt like what exactly Dallas was doing to the Eagles secondary. And look, Quinyon Mitchell did not have a great performance. He's lucky CeeDee Lamb dropped that ball on the final drive, because if he catches that and it was right in his breadbasket, the Cowboys probably win that football game. Quinyon dropped a couple plays before that, what could have been a game-sealing interception. He's got to finish these plays, just like last year, was not able to make a play on the ball despite getting in the right position. So Quinyon didn't have a great game by any means. But Adoree Jackson, just not a starting. I don't even think he should be on the 53-man roster. If I were Howie Roseman, I would cut him or trade him tomorrow. So Fangio can't even play him. I would make Vic Fangio play Jacorian Bennett or Keely Ringo. It was just unbelievable. And there was at one point a time where Adoree was shadowing CeeDee Lamb. I said the first show of this week that Quinyon Mitchell should be following number 88 wherever he goes. Not only did they not do that, they didn't even play zone where both corners are just on one side. Adoree, I saw many times, and I had some of my listeners tweeting at me at DiBiase LOE on X, that Adoree, they noticed it too. Jackson was following Lamb. I don't know if they thought that he just was a nightmare of a matchup for George Pickens, like Jackson just was not going to do well against Pickens, but instead we're going to put him up against one of the best route runners in the NFL. That's a top 5 receiver. What, Fangio? I know you're the best defensive coordinator in football, and I'm not going to doubt you on most things. They were the number one ranked defense in football last year with the youngest defense in football. But Adoree Jackson can't be on the football field. He can't, or it's going to cost you games. He was so bad today. It was exactly why this game was close, was exactly what I imagined would make it close. Adoree Jackson getting absolutely torched. And then it was being undisciplined and shooting yourselves in the foot. The Jalen Carter ejection, Adoree Jackson, and then the delay as well, the lightning delay. I mean, that really, the Cowboys adjusted really well on defense, started to send some disguised looks at Jalen Hurts, some different pressure packages. That really gave them an advantage. It felt like they were more juiced up coming out of that than the Eagles were. But the champion, the experienced winner, came through in the end. And a lot of it was because of the role players. It wasn't all bad for the defense. I do want to highlight some key players from this win coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are brought to you by DoorDash. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered. Powered by DoorDash, just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. I got to talk about tonight, Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. The numbers aren't sexy, but the two faces of the franchise were clutch in the biggest moments, especially early in that game when the defense, they eventually hunkered down in the second half and made some key stops, especially the final few drives to win the game. But the defense was bleeding early on. Dak Prescott was having a lot of success. Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts, they kept up with Prescott in a kind of a mini first half shootout. They stepped up and they were able to put the game on ice on that final drive in the fourth quarter. Just like Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley delivered for the Eagles, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order. Stack it all up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. All right, Eagles fans, we are wrapping up the post-game show. The first one of the 2025 regular season. The Eagles take a close one over the Dallas Cowboys 24-20 to get to 1-0. But a win is a win, especially when you look at the schedule. You got to get these wins against teams that you're the better football team. Let me just take a look. Before I get into some role players on defense, I know this is live, so I want to see what some of my listeners are saying. Tonight was a borderline disaster, and they still won by Patrick. I wouldn't call it a borderline disaster. In certain areas it was, and it felt like that early in the game. I'm not going to lie, I've never seen a game start off that brutally for the Eagles. Like a potential season-ending injury on the first play, and your best defensive player gets carted off, and then Adoree Jackson just looks like burnt toast on that first drive. That was pretty brutal, but yeah, I agree in some ways it was a disaster, but in some ways I was really encouraged as well. Like for them to overcome everything that happened tonight with the delay, with the Carter situation, with the defensive problems, with the injuries, that shows that this team, like they've learned from their deep playoff runs, their championship wins and losses. And that's going to bode so well down the stretch in close games when you're able to figure out how to win those games, because everything wrong that happened today is not always going to be the reality. And you can still win football games against a division rival who feel juiced up and ready to upset the champs. Like that to me is a good sign. And Jalen Hurts was great today, so there was a lot of good that came from this football game. From Skyler, Jalen Hurts is the only reason we won this game. Embarrassing defensive performance. Again, like I said, I think on defense there were some good things, which I'll get into. They were really clutch those final few drives. Although CeeDee Lamb's drops really helped them, I thought the defensive line got to Dak Prescott, and some DBs and linebackers made some big plays. So, yeah, I don't want to go as far as some of you guys are going here, but okay, let's dive right into it. Patrick, this is a great one. Jordan Davis had a really solid all-around game. He did. I think that's an understatement. Jordan Davis was one of the most underrated players in this game, and for him to step up the way he did, to play as much as he did when Jalen Carter left this football game before the first snap, he should have had 2 sacks in the first half. Now, he wasn't able to finish, and he needs to be able to get the quarterback to the ground. But he got to Dak Prescott. I saw 3 in the first 3 quarters. I saw 3 big pass rush wins by Jordan Davis, and they weren't just bull rushes. He won the third one on a bull rush, but the other 2 were counter rush moves, like some swim moves, some athletic plays. He looked like a different player today. He looked explosive, fast. It looks like he had a lot of stamina. I mean, he was not coming off the field, and they needed him. Again, he was the veteran on that defensive line now, on the interior. He is the longest tenured player on that defensive line, which is crazy. He was drafted in 2022. But without Jalen Carter, like, it was him and Nolan Smith. They had to carry, not just on the ground against the run, but getting to Dak Prescott as well. Jordan Davis looked like he was taking, I don't want to go this far yet, but I was starting to get flashes of Dexter Lawrence when he first broke out, or Vita Vea when he first broke out. And I'm like, okay, hold on. If he's going to start rushing the quarterback like that, the NFL's got a problem on their hands. Jordan Davis was just one of many role players that stepped up tonight. I was impressed with that entire defensive line. Again, they lost their best player. That makes everything so much easier for everybody else. But everybody stepped up. It wasn't just Jordan Davis. Moro Ijoma had a couple big pass rush wins in the second half. Jalix Hunt should have had a strip sack in the first half. He was really close a couple times, had a couple nice run stops on those final few drives. Nolan Smith consistently was getting to Dak Prescott today. But how about even some of like the other younger players, like Bryce Young? Bryce Young nearly had an interception. He was in on that forced fumble with Jahad Campbell when the game is 24-20. And they just got, Reed Blankenship just got that big-time defensive pass interference call that led Dallas down the field into the red zone. And Bryce Young was able to get in on that forced fumble. He had a couple nice wins as well, getting to Dak, stopping the run. That young defensive line was really impressive. I thought they all looked good. And even Josh Uche. Josh Uche had a really nice win on the left side. Nearly got to Prescott, was like just an inch away from getting a sack on that second last drive of the game as well. One score game. Uche won again, forced Dak to the right side. Had to force a play along the sidelines, which was incomplete. Uche looked really good. And that was super encouraging because when Carter is back, it's only going to get easier for those guys. And it also made me feel better because Azeez Ojulari was a healthy scratch for this football game. And Azeez Ojulari, when the Eagles signed him, I think they had him in mind being the third edge rusher in this rotation, not Josh Uche. I think they, considering the track record, the proven resume of Ojulari, I think they banked on him being the safer bet than Uche. And yet, Ojulari didn't even play in this football game, which put a lot of pressure on Uche to pan out. And a lot of these pass rushers, both on the interior and on the outside, and I thought they all looked really, really good. And it wasn't just them. The linebackers, Zach Bond had a good game again today, and Jahad Campbell, I think Howie Roseman might have did it again, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, the reason I was so happy with that pick is he's a Swiss Army knife that can impact the game in so many ways. Well, he showed that today. In one of those big drives where it's a one-score game in the third quarter, Campbell, and I was more concerned about him coming into the NFL in coverage than anything else as an inside linebacker. On a deep play, on a seam from a tight end, Campbell's able to catch up, show that closing speed, get his hands up and make the forcing completion at the perfect time. And then a couple plays later, he was the one. I thought originally it was Bryce Young, but it was Byron Young. I'm sorry, I keep saying Bryce Young. I'm thinking of the Panthers quarterback here. Byron Young, I thought at first, was the one that made the play on the forced fumble, but it actually was Jahad Campbell. He also made a nice play on a stop on the running back. It was a check down a couple plays before that. I thought the rookie was really good, so it wasn't all bad on defense. Even Drew Makuba made a really nice tackle on that second last drive to set up a 3rd and long. So I thought Campbell looked good. So did Makuba when he was in there. The entire defensive line, I know the sack numbers weren't there, but the pressures were. It wasn't all bad. They're definitely going in a step in the right direction still, if you ask me, because Carter's going to come back, and like I said, it's going to make things easier. I think this was a rare bad game from Quinyon Mitchell, and yet he still made a couple nice plays, a nice forcing completion in the end zone against George Pickens. Should have had that game-sealing interception. I don't think he'll be as rough as he was today, though, throughout the remainder of the season. So I still think the defense is not time to panic. It's just really that one spot. It's that second outside corner spot. I don't know. What do you do? Do you put Cooper DeJean on the outside and Drew Makuba in the slot for now? Or do you I think you give Ringo or Bennett a shot. I thought Jacorian Bennett made a couple nice plays in the second quarter today. Although he got a defensive pass interference, he was aggressive at least and was by the football, which is more than you can say about Adoree Jackson. I don't know what you do, but you cannot. I'm sorry, I've already seen enough. I've known it for months. I think they saw it today too. You cannot have Adoree Jackson on the football field next week or Patrick Mahomes is going to light him up. I think you can't win a Super Bowl with Adoree Jackson out there. I'm going to go that far. I just think he is such a liability. You guys remember, for my long-term listeners, how I used to go on Ronald Darby, how frustrated I used to get with him. It was like ×5 today with Adoree Jackson. So that was brutal. But overall, a great win considering the circumstances. A win is a win. You've got a tough schedule coming up. I thought Jalen Hurts looked great. A lot of good young role players on defense that we had questions about looked good today. And I think the passing game is going to get better. I think A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith will be more involved. So, again, considering everything that happened with Carter, the delay, the conservative play calling, the Adoree Jackson issues, for them to still get this win shows what a good football team they are. And I think it will get better. I'm not going to make any grand conclusions about this season from this game other than Adoree Jackson can no longer be a starter on defense. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Eagles, the postgame show. Thank you so much for tuning in and making us your first listen each and every day. Stock up, stock down, coming your way next Monday. Until then, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.